This is the planning board meeting, Wednesday, June 22nd. Valerie, if you want to take a roll call for attendance, looks like we have enough members to get started.
Sure. Mark Sprague.
Here.
Eric Nealand.
Here.
Mike Gore.
Here.
Jim Barr.
Here.
Pete Driscoll.
Present.
And Bob Romer.
Here.
All right.
Okay, great. I think we'll start with the administration items, and then we might jump into some of the business items as we have time between the public hearings we have going, although the one at 7:15 is going to be continued. So, but we'll wait till 7:15 to continue that officially. So, I don't know, Valerie, any correspondence or information from you? I didn't see anything on the web page, but if there's anything you want to share, maybe we can start with that.
Sure. Yeah, I haven't not gotten any correspondence to share at this point. And there's not too much new going on in the last 2 weeks. So really continuation of a lot of items that I think I've discussed in the past. So the Zoning Board of Appeals is continuing to look at an approval decision for the comprehensive permit at 580 Main, while we're also working with the applicants on a few outstanding items that would provide some community benefits associated with that application. I've got a few construction updates. So the Tadmore subdivision is looking for their 8th certificate of occupancy pretty soon. So they're moving along, and they still intend to get everything together for street acceptance next year. I've reached out to Century Mill Estates. I have not heard back. Same with Keys Farm. And I have reached out to council to try to set up another check-in regarding those items so that we can make sure that we're where we should be. Another update is that Bob Romer gave us, I think, 4 copies of this book called Rural by Design. It's by Randall Arendt. He is well known as a planner and landscape designer. So he has held numerous workshops and charrettes across the country, looking at how to improve open space development, and thinking of that as both a residential interest, and also thinking of commercial development in terms of open space design. So I've got 4 books, and I'm hoping to purchase the most up-to-date version as well, though I don't know if there are many changes between the versions. So if anyone wants a copy, I will leave them in the Dropbox for you all. Even if you just want to take it home for a weekend and take a look through it, put it back in, we can kind of use that Dropbox as a library for a while, if you just want to thumb through something. And then I just have a reminder to Eric, I need your signature on a couple of items that are still in that Dropbox. So when you swing by to pick up your copy, just give me your signature on a few of those items. And that's all I have.
All right, great, thanks. Yeah, I might grab one of them and peruse through, and then throw it back for others to take a look at. So
yeah, I have an additional one coming, so
great.
I'll give that to you as well.
Excellent. All right. Next item was the meeting minutes from the last meeting, but I don't see those, so we'll not ready yet. We'll just move that to our next meeting. No problem.
Thank you.
Sorry, let me move my phone away from the speaker. It's gonna make a lot of noise. Put it on silent. Okay, next, appoint Michelle Tuck, Daniel Spicer, and Natalie Gabrielle to the design review board. And Valerie indicated they're all interested in doing that for another year. So unless there's any discussion amongst the board, I'll entertain a motion to make that appointment.
I'll move that we appoint the 3 people named to the design review board.
Second.
And those in favor, Mark Sprague,
Yes.
Eric Nealons,
Aye.
Mike Gore,
Aye.
Jim Barr,
Aye.
and Pete Driscoll.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Great. And you mentioned, Valerie, as there's still 2 open seats on that board, maybe we'd put an advertisement, or if anyone knows anyone who might be interested, let us know. All right. As we still have a few minutes till 7:15, I'm going to jump to the business and see if we can take care of a few of these items. So the first item is related to 89 to 91 South Boughton Road, which is going to be continued. So we'll just we'll skip over that. All right, review and endorsement of an A&R plan for 305 Old Bay Road. Is this something, Valerie, that we can discuss now, or do we need to wait until folks are present?
That is something that we can discuss now. I believe Ken Strom is here to speak on the applicant's behalf.
Perfect. Let's see if we can discuss that. So Ken, if you want to go ahead and introduce what you're looking to do, appreciate it.
Sure. Ken Strom, WDA Design Group, Westboro, Mass. Can you bring up the plan, Valerie? Or
Sure. Sorry, one moment.
no problem. So lot 3 is the house that the Bishops purchased a number of years ago that they're selling. And they bought the rear piece, the larger piece there. And they're basically cutting off, there's a shed in the back that didn't meet zoning setback requirements to the back right of the lot 3 house. And just cutting off that parcel there to give them a little more of a backyard. Parcel A would be cut off from the bigger piece, the remaining lot B, to allow them a little bit of a larger backyard, and also to bring the shed on the right-hand side into conformance. So they own both of these parcels currently, and they're selling off lot 3 and parcel A next week, hopefully.
Okay, so this is just to add parcel A to lot 3.
Correct.
Okay. I don't have any questions or concerns. Anyone else on the board? Feel free to chime in.
So lot B already exists, it's just in common ownership.
Right. Yep, that's a larger piece that butts the Wilder farm there.
Okay, so we're not actually subdividing anything, we're just moving some land from parcel B to parcel A.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Valerie, any concerns from you on this?
No, I reviewed a preliminary plan a few weeks back, and I think the revisions look great. The plan meets all of the requirements of an A&R. So there's the lot 3 has unchanged frontage there that's conforming to the bylaw. The size and shape is also in conformance. It's really just, as you mentioned, it's really just a land swap and not a true, not a creation of another lot.
Okay. Well, unless anyone else on the board has any questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I'll move that we approve the A&R to, for Old Bolton Road to move parcel A into.
Old Bay Road.
Or Old Bay Road, sorry. To move parcel A into lot 3 as shown.
Second.
And those in favor, Mark Sprague,
Yes.
Eric Neeland,
Yep.
Mike Gore,
Aye.
Jim Barr,
Aye.
and Pete Driscoll.
Aye.
All right.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Ken.
Sure,
Appreciate.
thank you. When do you typically sign plans?
So Valerie, I think we, based on our previous meeting, we have allowed you for this year to sign A&R plans for the board. Is that correct? Do we have that sorted yet? Or
It's
is it?
not yet sorted, so that's the remaining signature I need. So I think that the board would still need to sign this one. So I can, of course, I'm sorry, Ken, it always is a little bit more difficult with the pandemic and virtual meetings. So what I'll do is put it in the Dropbox for the board, and I'll send you all an email when it's available. It may take some time. I am unfortunately on vacation next week, so I can check the Dropbox on Friday afternoon to see if we have a majority of member signatures then, and I'll let you know. But
Okay.
do.
All right. Yeah, hopefully they can get in and sign it. All right.
Yeah, we'll try to sign as expeditiously as possible. We understand.
Sure. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, take care.
Thank you. Okay. So let's see. 7:14. So let's talk slowly and go back to the first public hearing for the backland lot special permit for 89 to 91 South Bolton Road, and the applicant has requested a continuance to the August meeting, I believe, Valerie, as they need to do some more site engineering work, which we had kind of known and been discussing, correct?
Yes, exactly. Yep. So they are looking to, and they may have an engineer under contract at this point. I'm not quite sure, but as we all know, things are taking a lot longer than they typically do. So I think that they'll need a little added time. So the August 10th meeting sounded like it would work for them. So they are intending to look closer at the drainage calculations that we had asked for. So they're saying at least August 10th.
Okay, well, I think it's good to hear that they're kind of going the route we need them to go. So guess we'll entertain a motion to continue to August 10th. 7:15 is good unless we have anything else on the agenda. Okay.
I'll move that we continue the backland special permit hearing for 89 to 91 South Bolton Road to the August 10th meeting at 7:15.
Second.
And those in favor, Mark Sprague,
Yes.
Eric Neeland,
Aye.
Mike Gore,
Aye.
Jim Barr,
Aye.
and Pete Driscoll.
I believe I need to abstain from this one unless voting for a continuance is not related to the, I'll just abstain, but I have no issue.
Yeah, okay. I will, thanks for that reminder. I'll take a look at that and see who's all voting on that one.
Okay. Yeah, and just, I mean, because we only have, I think, the minimum, if that, or was that the other one? So I can't
So
remember.
it was, I know that there were a couple of members that had missed for the Fosbird coming up.
Okay, yeah, I know I missed that. Maybe this one I actually could vote on. I
You
can't.
might be fine. I'll put you down as a vote if you're able to.
All right, yeah, well, I'm fine with continuance, but
Okay.
it's hard to remember as these get continued. Do we need any approval from the applicant to, given the time from when they submitted, and or maybe we have that already?
Yeah, so we do have that on file. I do need to get it in written, the extension on the ANR, because typically the board has to act on that within 21 days. So continuing to extend it makes sense for the applicant. He's in agreement with it, but I should get it in writing just to make it cleaner.
Sounds good. Okay, we have some time until our next public hearing, so we'll go back to the business. I'm going to skip over the next item related to the LIV Golf Invitational Series, as I believe we're going to get a presentation, but not until later on in the meeting. So let's skip over that for now and move on to the vote to recommend the approval of BSC Group's proposal for the master plan consulting services. And myself and Valerie and Bob and
Brian Boyle.
yeah.
Yeah.
Picture of it. Well, throw a blank there. Met earlier. We have reviewed it. We met earlier in the week, and we're good to move forward with their proposal, which at this point is kind of a fairly straightforward, proposal for consulting services. And the next step would be they would, put together a contract that would have more of the details. So I don't know, Valerie, if you want to add anything. I think it seems like they're a great choice. Appreciate all your hard work, especially in a short time frame, to kind of get them interested and on board, and with the money situation, and also, kind of as you explained to us the other day about, clear expectations for what we're looking for from them out of this. So anything you want to share with the rest of the board would be great.
Sure, yes. So this is a proposal from BSC Group, which the town has been actually working with through the Conservation Commission for the last couple of years. They've been helping with the municipal vulnerability preparedness action grants that the Conservation Commission has been receiving. So I think a few weeks back at one of our meetings, I had sent over the draft regulatory matrix of our zoning bylaws and how we might make those more climate friendly. So those were actually an example of the work from BSC Group. So I do feel confident that we're in good hands here. They certainly know the town well, albeit from more of a conservation perspective, though I think that's kind of exactly what I've been hearing from residents, that what they want from the master plan is taking that climate resilience perspective and kind of drawing it out through all sorts of land use issues and items. So I am definitely very, very pleased that they've provided a proposal. I had a good conversation with their lead planner about kind of how they would bolster our public engagement. That's certainly one of the main concerns I think that we have right now, is that it's not very clear, the work that's being done from the task groups. And so I was asking, how do we how do we continue to engage people? How do we make sure that people know this is going on when we might not have the staff capacity to do that, but how do we make sure that people are understanding that this is happening? And so they had a couple of great ideas. They're very willing to work with the volunteers that we have on the steering committee, which is so important. So that's really great. I think that they're not anticipating to come on board and just sweep it away and just do it themselves. They're really looking to work with the residents that we have that have been volunteering for this for the past few years, and really make it something that is very specific to Bolton and very action oriented. So we had a good conversation about not wanting a plan that just sits on the shelf, wanting something that that isn't just a plan, right? It's actually something that can get us to the next steps and can actually draw a really clear roadmap for the town. So I was quite pleased by that. Do any members have questions about what was in the proposal, or I'm sure in your day jobs, you might be used to reviewing some of these kinds of things too, working with consultants and clients. So let me know if you have any questions specific to the master plan, or just anything about contracting or what our next steps are.
Maybe for me, just on the next steps, I mean, the proposal looked fine, but it was, kind of general in a few areas. And I was going to ask some questions, but then I said, so how, in terms of, if we decide to move forward here, the next steps, I assume, would then be them putting together a contract, and would it be the same kind of process for us to review and discuss that with the committee and then the board?
So I think I would go to what I've done with other contracts so far is to provide it to Don Lowe as town administrator and chief procurement officer for the town. So he is typically the one that reviews contracts. He may send it to town council as well. But that would be, I don't think that we would need to wait for another planning board meeting. I think that we would be able to request that the consultant start drawing up those documents as soon as possible for the town administrator to review and approve. After that, we would have a kickoff meeting, probably just with Bob as the chair of the committee and Brian as the vice chair and myself, to start kind of sharing a lot of the information and a lot of the data. There's certainly a lot that needs to be prepared and sent over to them. We have 2 years of work that over 20 volunteers have been doing. So there's a lot of kind of synthesizing and packaging that up in order to give it to them. But one thing I am excited about that's coming up soon is one of their first tasks will be to complete a build out analysis of what the town would look like in 20 years if we didn't change zoning, so that anything that's recommended from the plan or anything that residents might be asking about at public forums can then be thought about in terms of, well, how would this actually change the build out analysis? How could we improve things based on this baseline that we have? So I think that's a really great first step.
Great, excellent. I don't have any other questions or concerns, but any other members of the board, or Bob, if there's anything you want to share, please feel free. All right. Well,
Valerie,
sorry.
quick question, Valerie. Was this like a bid process, or like, I know for a lot of things that you have to get multiple bids.
Yes, yeah. So it was a bid process. This went out in March. It was actually almost 3 months ago now. So it was a full request for proposals, which we essentially had to do because of the, as you're saying, because of procurement, it's the size of the project would kind of push it into that RFP category. So it was a full bid. We did not get multiple proposals. So it was definitely, it was a difficult process to attract consultants. We did have to get additional funding set aside from the select board's allocation of the ARPA funds, the American Recovery or American Rescue Plan Act. So that having $100,000 kind of committed to the project definitely incited BSC Group to actually respond because they can take us seriously. But lots of firms are just very busy right now. So other folks I talked to just weren't sure that they could fit this into their schedule because it's not a 6-month project. It's a 2-year thing. So it's going to take some time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. That was a long answer. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Let me add that the RFP that Valerie put together was incredibly detailed and very specific about what she and we were looking for. And we did get that feedback from a number of potential consultants that they were very impressed with that. They understood it thoroughly. But as she said, there are a number of other things that have come up, not the least of which is the MBTA town housing requirement by the state, which has inundated a substantial number of towns. But it's unusual to have a single proposal, but this was an excellent one.
Well, great. If there aren't any other questions or comments from the board, I'll entertain a motion to recommend the approval of BSC Group's proposal.
I'll move that we move forward with the BSC Group proposal for the master plan consulting.
Second.
And those in favor, Mark Sprague,
Yes.
Eric Neeland,
Yes.
Mike Gore,
Aye.
Jim Barr,
Aye.
and Pete Driscoll.
Aye. Okay. It's going along pretty well. Next up on business is a vote to dissolve the Housing Production Plan Committee. And actually forgot to take a note when you mentioned this to me earlier, Valerie, but if I remember correctly, their work has been done for over a year and we don't need them anymore.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So the housing production plan was accepted by the state last April, I believe. So the town clerk was going through the board and committee appointments and just flagged this out to me just as a reminder that it should be dissolved in order for that to get properly closed out.
Okay. Well, if there's any discussion, let's have a motion.
I'll move that we dissolve the Housing Production Plan Committee.
Second.
And those in favor, Mark Sprague,
Yes.
Eric Neeland,
Aye.
Mike Gore,
Aye.
Jim Barr,
Aye.
and Pete Driscoll.
Aye.
All right.
Okay. Well, we still have 15 minutes until our next public hearing is scheduled. So maybe we could just touch on the last item on business a little bit about potential zoning bylaw articles. One thing we discussed at last meeting, and I've been thinking about a little bit, but haven't provided to you yet, Valerie, was for the board to go through our preliminary list and kind of put some priorities around it. Doesn't have to be perfect, but to kind of get the board's feedback on how to prioritize the list we have and if there's any new things on there. So one thing, just kind of reminder to everyone, if you're able to take a look at that if you haven't already and provide feedback to Valerie. I know you mentioned, Valerie, you didn't maybe have a chance yet, but to look at some of the timing to see, as we provide priority and you look at the timing, so we try to structure what we can realistically do.
Right. Yes, exactly. So as Pete mentioned, I have not had time to take a look at the timelines of the various potential zoning amendments. But yes, if anyone has, if you guys want to share with me your input on what you think should take priority this year, that would be great. Right now, I'm leaning toward a few different, probably more boring zoning bylaws changes, but they would make permitting a little bit more clear. So for example, I think that it should be a priority to kind of clean up site plan approval so that it is within the planning board's purview. I don't know that it's been really acted upon much in the last few years, which kind of signals to me that it just isn't really working in the way that it's intended. So I'm hoping that we're able to kind of pull that into the planning board's purview and combine it with other special permits that you already have the authority to accept or to approve. I think it would also be interesting to look at we talked a lot about the earth removal bylaws, erosion control bylaws, and tree protection. So maybe you do think those are more fun, but I think that those three will really touch on a lot of the problems or the concerns that I've heard from you about developers' ability to clear cut and the ability for the planning board to enforce to ensure that a site is treated appropriately throughout construction.
Yeah, I actually had a question. I know we talked a little bit about the earth removal and the erosion control, kind of detail and need for that, which makes sense to me. I know we were also, the board was discussing tree removal. I just had a question a little bit like, what would the tree removal bylaw kind of, what's kind of the purpose, right? Like I understand, okay, we don't want clear cutting, but how would that work in terms of a new development?
Yeah, so I believe it would only was only able to be required of a development of a construction project that is going for another type of special permit. So it would not impact property owners, residential property owners. It may impact them if it's someone hoping to build a new single family home. The way that works is it's intended to help with the protection of large trees, that we can dictate what that size is. Some towns ask for a 1-to-1 caliper inch replacement of any of trees that are removed. So I guess the idea is if you're unable to provide a really strict limit of clearing, then at least you can quite heavily replant the area after construction. But that's really about it. So the tree protection is really just making sure that we have an inventory of the trees that are slated to be removed and then a plan for replacement.
Gotcha. So it'd be like developer wants to put in a subdivision of some number of houses, and they obviously have to do quite a bit of clearing, right? But now we don't really look at what's there. So we kind of provide, say, okay, there's 50, trees over this size in here that you're going to have to remove to put in there. And then it would require, understand we don't have the detail, but potentially require the developer to replant, some number of trees in terms of, on what would become private property, landscaping and stuff like that after they, build the development.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So it's, and it's intended to kind of, yeah, exactly. So work kind of in conjunction with some other ideas of phased clearing or which is going to be also in the erosion control a little bit. So it's kind of a three-pronged approach a little bit to get at the landscaping issue and the clear cutting of land. But we can look more at some example bylaws and kind of get a sense too of which town bylaws are more legal than others. I think that there are certainly a lot of towns that have kind of stretched the the ability for towns to regulate this, but I think it'll be important just to talk to town council just to make sure that we're within our ability.
So Valerie, the intention would be that the planning board would have to approve like some sort of site design plan that showed which trees they're planning to remove, and they would need our approval before they did that.
Exactly. Yes, and it gives an opportunity to for the developer to have a discussion with the tree warden early on. So having that conversation with the tree warden to say, what species of trees do we want planted in town? What trees are on the tree warden's list? Making sure that we're not planting a lot of Norway maples or other kind of invasive species as well. So it's a good opportunity too to kind of connect the developer to other areas of town before they apply.
Yeah, it'd definitely be interesting to see what, if other towns have those kind of bylaws, because I assume it's challenging, right? If you're going to put in a development and you need, potentially roads and driveways and houses and septic, and even if, you can't build a house right next to an established tree, right? Because you're going to get into the root system if you're digging a foundation or septic or underground utilities or something. So how you kind of balance the, sure, we don't want clear cutting, but how do you balance how to actually, not damage, not, kill all, say, oh, we're not cutting this tree down, but it dies in a year because you've disturbed its root structure and stuff. So, all right, thanks for the additional info on that. I was thinking about that one. Yeah, I guess as we still have a couple minutes, anyone on the board want to weigh in on any thoughts on some of the stuff we talked about last time for town meeting articles or new things that maybe we didn't talk about?
So Valerie, like just kind of looking back at all the issues we've run into with Keys Farm and CME, are there bylaws that like our hands were tied, that would have been helpful in resolving issues with some of those? I mean, I'd definitely like to not have the board be in some of those positions that we were with those developments, where there's disagreement about who's responsible for what. Does that mean passing new bylaws or tightening up language and existing things? I mean, I know the tree removal one may have helped out more at Keys Farm, but I assume there's other stuff that we could do as well.
Wasn't there issues with driveways and not following plans exactly, and we really didn't have the bylaws to handle that in subdivisions?
Yeah, I think that so yeah, exactly. So I think that without stating that I certainly don't think that the town was in the wrong. So I know that we're in a public meeting. Just want to make that clear. I think that the way it was handled, those items were handled does make sense according to the bylaws that we have and the town's authority to act. I think it's frustrating that there is limited enforcement opportunities for subdivisions, and that is not something that we can change, unfortunately. But also to your point, there are a few items that we could just make more explicit as we're dealing with developers who may need something to be more clear. So driveway permits, we could clarify that, we might not. I think I've said this at another meeting. I don't think that we should be dealing with driveway permits. It's so, I think that the board should be tasked with looking at the subdivision road as a road and the driveways as driveways that are all relating to the same infrastructure. And maybe we need to make that a little more clear. Or we just need to eliminate planning board purview of driveway permits and just stick to the subdivision control law and the rules and regulations we already have in place, because there's a lot of protection in that. I think there are a few items that were in the subdivision rules and regs that could be clarified just more explicitly, just kind of underlined, even the understanding that rules and regs don't really hold much water, and so we shouldn't need to have everything in there. But it could be useful to be able to point back to it when we say the developer needs to install mailboxes in a timely fashion. The developer needs to, what was the other one? Needs to provide snow plowing until the road is adopted or until the homeowners association takes control. Those things are required, but though they are unfortunately not explicitly called out in the subdivision rules and regs. So those are some changes we can make. I'm sure there are others. And I know that this board has also talked in the past about wanting to do a bit of a postmortem on that development once it's truly complete. So
Bond reduction stuff, is there, reduce the frequency of
Thank
bond
you.
reductions, or?
Thank you. That was the other one. Yes, you can absolutely do that. So you can say you can ask for, essentially say that there's a maximum of 5 bond reductions total. So after 20% of the work is done, you're allowed to request one. After another 20% of work is done, you can request a second one. So that is unfortunately not what this board has had the experience of. So yes, instead of being kind of nickel and dimes, you can set those parameters. So thank you for that reminder.
I think also on the bonding, I think if a project, extends beyond some period of time, the bond needs to be re-estimated and the amount adjusted. So if you look at the original CME bond may have covered them completely, but 10 years of inflation and such has left it, a little bit sparse. So I think whether it's every 3 years or whatever, they should go back and have to re-estimate everything that's left to be done, and come back and say, okay, the original estimate was X, prices have gone up, so now X plus 50K, so we owe, we have to bond a little bit extra to keep it in compliance.
Yeah,
it's a definitely good point.
And again, if that's on like 3 years or something, then a lot of developments will never hit that. But if you have something like CME that's dragged out for ages, then it would.
And I think I've asked this before. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Mallory.
I was just thinking maybe that is something that the board currently has the ability to do. If it's possible that when the applicant asks for an extension of the timeline, that may be an appropriate time to ask for a review of the bonds and adjusting for inflation or whatever it might be.
It just kind of makes it explicit that that's going to happen. So
exactly, yeah, just making it very clear.
Yeah, and that way they can't say they were throwing requirements at them that they didn't know about, and kind of reminds the board that we need to do that periodically.
Was that what you were going to say, Mike?
Yeah, I was going to ask, I think we've talked about this before, but we like withholding bond reductions if there's things out of compliance or stuff like that. We don't have much leeway with that because of state rules. Is that?
You're right. You can only withhold funds based on items in the bond.
I think we've also talked about, there's a limited number of things that are covered by the bond. Like the road and drainage. I didn't know, I think we've talked about broadening out what stuff is bonded so that we don't run into that as much where, something isn't in compliance, but we don't have any leverage.
What are the things you're thinking about, Mark?
Oh, trying to think of some of the things that
If I can jump
yeah,
in.
please, please.
I remember this
Save
is
me
one
on
of
this one. Yeah.
this is one of the first things I remember learning about the development when I got here was just the slope behind lot 4. How do you make sure that it's properly loamed and seeded? The bond only discussed loam and seed, for example, around the road. And I think that's a great question, and that's definitely something that we could think about, though. I think it's the erosion control special permit that would touch on that more. And special permits are easier to enforce than definitive subdivision approval. So maybe we'll cover ourselves better if we also have another special permit process as well.
It's always,
and the soil removal helps too, because that will keep more dirt, more of the loam and stuff on site. So.
Right.
yeah, I was going to say, that it's always tough when, developer, comes in for subdivision, and then, they end up selling off the lots, right? Whether they build the house and, sell it to someone, and then it, becomes a little bit of a finger pointing thing. Oh, well, it's private property. They did this, they did that. So it might be a little different than some of the bond stuff we're talking about, but somehow, that's been an issue with a few different projects where, the developer says, well, it's private property now, and the folks come to us. So as we think about those things, if there's anything that we can do to help out, protections for obviously the town, and then, potential private landowners, until the subdivision is actually, completed. Which, I don't know, could be challenging to do that.
Well, maybe an approach similar to what we do with wetlands would be appropriate, that the requirements go with the land. And you buy the land, you're responsible for what has not been completed, if in fact the developer at that point hasn't done so. And I think we've seen that in the past, that, as you mentioned, a lot gets purchased. There is a significant amount of erosion in some cases into other lots. And who's held responsible, and on what basis?
I think it is a bit different with planning than it is with wetlands. So subdivision control would say that it is still the developer's responsibility, even when lots are sold. So until the subdivision is completed, it is their responsibility. So it does get into some tricky situations when you have people move in and they say that they want their lawn faster and they try to do it themselves. It's definitely a little awkward, but still the developer's problem.
Well, that makes it very clear.
Yeah.
Well, definitely some good things to think about as we put any new language or adjust any language. All right, I think you know, we can always come back to these if we have some time. I'd like to move on to this next public hearing. So I will read the public hearing notice, as I think is required.
Would you like me to pull that up or?
Oh, I actually have it. I just, and just a note for everyone, in 10 or 15 minutes, I have to drop off for a couple of minutes just to get my daughter into bed. So if my camera goes dark, Valerie, Mark, you can cover for me depending where you are. I'll be right back. All right. Planning Board will hold a public hearing pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81, on Wednesday, June 22nd at 7:45 p.m. via Zoom video communications to adopt marijuana establishment special permit rules and regulations. This public hearing will be conducted via remote participation pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of Massachusetts Open Meeting Law, GL Section 30A 18, login information is provided below. So I think, Valerie, did you have anything you wanted to maybe present as just kind of a brief, as this is a new set of rules and regulations, we just wanted to just briefly present for anyone in the meeting or anyone watching the recording, kind of just a little bit a brief background, and then we can take any discussion from anyone in the audience.
Sure. All right. Let me open this up. All right. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Now we can.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So the board has reviewed a few draft versions of the marijuana establishment special permit rules and regs. Just a little bit of background about what rules and regulations are. So the purpose is really to provide the applicant with a clear application form and process to apply for the special permit. The rules and regs also set expectations for what is within a submission and what constitutes a complete application. And it also kind of outlines what the next steps are for the applicant. So the public hearing process, the actions of the board, it makes it all more clear. The planning board has the authority to adopt rules and regulations through Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, which kind of shows the limitation of rules and regulations generally. So essentially saying that the planning board, as the special permit granting authority, is allowed to adopt and amend rules and regulations relative to issuance of permits, and that the rules and regs really would only cover size, form, contents, style, number of copies of plans and specifications, and the procedure for submission and approval. So it's really quite limited. The planning board already has many of these documents that I've listed here. So this is a pretty typical process for the board to adopt, whether it's a special permit or a subdivision itself. It's important too to note that the town approved in 2018 the zoning bylaw that allows marijuana establishments to locate in Bolton. So adoption of rules and regulations is not the trigger or the approval for having marijuana establishments in town. This is really more administrative in nature. So section 250-23.3 of the zoning bylaw is what lays out the location, the type of marijuana establishment allowed, the requirements for operation, and also the requirements for the board for their findings when they may or may not grant a special permit. So rules and regulations are used in conjunction with the zoning bylaw, though it does not grant additional allowances or more strict requirements. So it's really the zoning that was passed previously in 2018 that already did that. So this is a large document. So instead of going page by page, I just wanted to provide a brief overview of the outline of this document. So it goes through general provisions, which again reiterates the planning board's authority in order to proceed with an application. It outlines a few definitions that are mostly taken from zoning bylaw itself. So there's a lot of restating of what is in the zoning code. It talks too about the board's ability to hire consultants, so to hire peer reviewers that might help in the board understanding the application. There's also preliminary review, so the applicant's ability to come before the board to discuss the application prior to doing a full submittal. So this is a good opportunity for them to get some preliminary feedback, which is already done in a lot of our other special permit processes or through the subdivision approval as well. The filing requirements just describe the actual application form, the filing fees. Then just another note that further fees would be required to be deposited so that we can hire that peer reviewer. The contents of an application get more into more of the detail that we need to review in order to understand what is being applied for and how we can evaluate it. I'll review that a little more on the next slide. The public hearing portion is just a brief overview of the public hearing process, making sure that's clear to the applicant. Planning board action is again just administrative, the number of votes required, how a decision is filed, the rights of the applicant or abutters to appeal the decision. And then, the extensions of timelines to do work, etc. So these are, again, fairly standard. These are in many of our rules and regulations and also in other towns' rules and regs. There's a lot of similarity between types of special permits. But because it's a marijuana establishment, we did want to require a few extra things as well. So we wanted to be able to look at, a ventilation plan. Wanted to look at the reference. There are multiple references to the application that the applicant would have already provided to the Cannabis Control Commission. So a lot of the language within the rules and regs essentially says, you've already provided all of this to the state, just show the town that's those same documents for us to be able to evaluate and have on file as we move forward. It also requests further information such as hours of operation, any signage that may be proposed, talks about the waste disposal plan, also looking for a noise reduction plan, and more information about water management. So understanding too that there may be a product manufacturer or a cultivator that may have higher water needs than a marijuana retailer, for example. So looking for further information to be provided to the board so that we can properly evaluate and place conditions in a special permit. So security and lighting, landscaping, and of course an impact analysis is also needed. And that's what reviews traffic considerations, circulation on site itself, the physical environment of the site that may have been selected, surface waters, soils, those things. So the meat of the document is definitely in section 4. But again, this document is really more administrative. And it allows the board to better understand how to condition a special permit and what kinds of questions to be asking of the applicant. So that's all I've prepared. I don't know if the board wants to review other specific sections or if there are any questions.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks very much, Valerie, for that kind of overview. And for anyone listening or watching, the draft document's available on the website, and we can certainly pull that up. I guess before we open it to any public comments, just the board we've reviewed and discussed in detail at previous meetings, but if anyone has any questions, final comments, any sections we want to take a look at here as part of the public hearing? Okay, see there's a few other folks on. I don't know if they're on for this or not, but if anyone, any members of the public are interested in asking questions, comments about these rules and regulations, if you can please give your name and address and fire away. Okay, well, I'll take that as one is you know, here to discuss. I mean, it is as you mentioned, Valerie, kind of, you know, administrative document, and we can certainly update it as needed in the future. So there's no other questions, comments from the board or the audience. I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
No, I'll move to close the hearing.
Do we have a second?
Second.
And those in favor, Mark Sprague,
Yes.
Eric Neeland,
Aye.
Mike Gore,
Aye.
Jim Barr,
Aye.
and Pete Driscoll.
Hi. All right, now I'll entertain a motion to adopt the marijuana establishment special permit rules and regulations.
I'll move we adopt the marijuana establishment special permit rules and regulations.
Second.
Those in favor, Mark Sprague,
Yes.
Eric Neeland,
Aye.
Mike Gore,
Aye.
Jim Barr,
Aye.
and Pete Driscoll.
Hi,
All right.
that was easy. Thanks
Excellent.
very much, Valerie, for all your work on that, and thanks everyone on the board for all the time we spent going through that. You know, it looks like we may have the opportunity to use these in the future soon, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so we're remarkably ahead of schedule, and it's never happened.
I did not anticipate that.
I'm going to step away for just a couple minutes, maybe before the 8:15 meeting. If you know, there's anything else related to the zoning bylaws that we want to discuss, we could do that, and then at 8:15 we'll move forward with that hearing.
Sounds good.
Anybody heard any jokes?
That are suitable for this audience, I assume.
I do have my dad joke of the day calendar that I could regale you with. What do you do if you see a fireman? Put it out, man.
Is that a recent gift?
Yeah, that was Christmas.
Oh, okay. I was thinking Father's Day, but all right. Yeah. I always try to predict how long these meetings are going to last. I thought this was going to be a very late meeting. So great.
As with town meeting, the most complicated things pass in a heartbeat, and the most little mundane thing takes hours. So
Yeah.
And when it comes to the rules and regs, I know that's kind of boring. When there's a real actual special permit, people will be interested.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Valerie, when did you think BSC would get started?
I'm hopeful that we can start sharing data maybe as early as the first week of July. Though I
Oh,
know
wow.
that vacation schedules do get complicated, but they are ready to they're ready to start work. So
That's awesome.
soon. Yeah.
Bob, what have you been working on? In terms of wood?
A new wooden boat.
Say what? I'm sorry, what?
A new wooden boat, a 16-footer designed by a New Zealand nautical designer. I wouldn't call him a marine architect. That's been around since the 70s. Actually, I inherited the project half done by a very well-known boat builder who regrettably had a stroke and couldn't finish.
Oh,
So he did a wonderful job to the extent that he was able to do it. So that'll be my winter project. And I got to figure out where to put my wooden boats.
you're thinking about Bear Hill Pond at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty quick sailor, so there's not a lot of space. But it also has oars, so that's a possibility.
Excellent, excellent.
So I was up there a couple of years ago and they had a Douglas and McLeod Thistle out there, which is, it's 19-footer, and then they were sailing that, so. That's kind of what I grew up in, racing.
Yeah. I'd love to get back into sailing again. Take some time, take some knowledge.
Well, I just last year bought a Beetle Cat used, 20 years old, the original wooden version, which is what I learned to sail in. And now I have 4 grandchildren who are going to learn to sail.
Excellent,
Same boat,
excellent.
but it's a perfect boat. I mean, it's 12 feet long and 6 feet in beam. And it has I think with a board up, it has a 3.5-inch draft. So you can get in pretty shallow water.
Good, good. No, we're pretty lucky to have Bear Hill Pond.
Yeah,
That's an actual really great, really good place to put boats in, sail, and
Yeah.
everything else like that. So we're fortunate in this area to have that.
what's the water chestnut situation like on that now?
I'm sorry, what?
The water chestnut, they had gotten into that. I know there was a big effort to cut. It may have gone away completely.
Well, I don't know.
See, we've moved on to boating. Not a sailor myself, but I have just a small little speedboat for kids water skiing and stuff. I was trying to get it started today, actually. So, working out for me.
How'd you make out?
It's got the battery's good. I had it charged up all winter. It's got power. The blower and the trim motor runs, but I turned the key in. Something's wrong in the wiring, so it's getting nothing. So the key was giving me trouble last year, so it could actually be the key switch or the neutral state or something in the wiring. So I got a little planning to do something on the 4th of July, with that. So trying to get it going, but
Trick is to put a wrench across the solenoid.
yeah, that's I had to kind of quit for dinner before the meeting, but didn't quite get there. That'll be maybe tomorrow even. Anyway, for anyone on the meeting here, we're just going to kill a little bit of time due to being ahead of schedule, which we don't usually have the case. So pretty close now to 8:15. So I'll just introduce this and talk slow again. So this is a continuation of a preliminary phase phosphid development for South Bolton Road, map 2C parcel 23, which has been continued a number of times. And I think hopefully we're at the point, we've kept the hearing open just to allow, any comments from the applicant or the public as we've finalized our decision, which I think we're have it at a pretty good place now. And so thank you, Jeff, for your patience with us in this evening. So I think, Valerie, we basically have everything we need from what we discussed last meeting. So I don't know if you want to pull up the decision to run through it at all with the few things that we were kind of discussing last time, and hopefully we can knock this out pretty quickly.
Sure.
All right, back to business.
We'll be back to voting shortly.
All right, so I did insert a few items here just based on our last conversation, but really not much has changed. So I did include a few more items that the applicant provided to me between the planning board's last meeting and this one tonight. So a little more information from Natural Heritage. And I'm not sure if members were able to look at the site plan that reviews kind of the proposed conditions that was provided to Natural Heritage for their purposes. And then this is really all the same. I made this a little stronger per your recommendation. So the board expects the installation of shade trees or preservation of existing trees along the proposed road. And then the plan submitted for the final phase should show the limit of clearing, and any trees larger than 6 inches at diameter at breast height that are intended to be removed should be noted. And that the board would recommend a phased clearing plan as we discussed with the applicant. And then also that the board would prefer that proposed 40-foot wide section that's noted as a conservation deed restriction to instead be included as part of the open space rather than being included as private property, because it gets confusing for future owners, basically, in order to enforce that. It gets a little more complicated. And that was those are the edits that I made.
Okay, great. Anyone, and first of all, just to clarify, I'm not a voting member of the board on this because I missed a few of the, looks like Mike, Eric, and Mark are, we've had a number of discussions on this. So anyone have any questions on the board, have any questions, comments on the decision or the changes since our last meeting?
So you, Valerie, you got copies of all the emails from Natural Heritage?
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
I believe I had provided those. Oh, maybe I didn't actually put them on in the packet. But essentially, the last one that came in from Natural Heritage was about a week ago from the director of regulations over there, and he was saying that he was approving of the plan provided, and had a few comments. But it seemed like it was acceptable for a 6-lot subdivision.
Okay, so nothing that would change initiate any changes in the plans or anything.
Don't believe so, no. No.
Okay.
Any additional concerns from you on this? Okay, anyone else? Jeff, I see you're on. Any other comments that you or anyone else meeting want to make on it before we close the public hearing?
I just wanted to just to note a couple. I don't think my engineer Brian Millsey was able to jump on, but he gave me just a couple notes in regards to this. I don't know if maybe it's if this is the correct time to bring these up, or if it's more during the definitive stage. But he had noted that making the 50-foot buffer property line for the open space doesn't create a non-conformity with any of the lots, but it does make the rear offset to the proposed house location on lot number 2 very tight. It comes in pretty close to that zoning that calls for a 20-foot setback. So it'd be right up against it. I just wanted to make you guys aware of that. And, you know, like I said, it's literally right there, probably within a foot of that 20-foot setback. I don't know if you guys have any comments on that.
I mean, all that's shown on the plans right now is just a general building envelope. It's not it's not the actual outline of the building, the house that will go there. So,
Okay.
It's just kind of showing generally there will be a house in this, in this box here somewhere.
Okay.
So,
Got
it may just be picking the right plan that's maybe not, a little longer, but not quite as deep or something, or swinging it to the front of the box instead of the back. But it sounds like even if it, the offset still works either way. So it's just tight.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just reading the notes. And then the other one was just the condition number 10 just seemed like it would take a lot of time to do, which is the tree larger than 6 inches, because I assume that's for all roads, driveways, and building. So if that is required for the next phase before being able to move forward, is there anything? Obviously, as you guys know, this has taken us a long time to get to this point, and appreciate you guys working with us. But is there anything we can do just to not have that delay us significant amount of time? Because I feel like marking every single tree that is going to take a long time.
I can say that is not currently a requirement in the rules and regulations. So it's not something, or in a zoning bylaw. So it's not something that is required of the definitive subdivision, but it is certainly something that the board is talking about and is interested in seeing in future applications. So, to the extent possible, I would say, try to indicate that on the plans. Perhaps, maybe there's another threshold that makes more sense for the trees on the property itself. But I think the intent of that condition was really because the board is just interested in seeing the location of large trees. So 6 inches in diameter is certainly a smaller tree. But if there are, larger species trees that are intended to be removed, those should certainly be noted.
I think also that the goal is to discourage just clear cutting the area.
Mm-hmm.
So to the extent that that you identify the areas that actually need to be cleared, you'd only be looking at trees in that area, not the entire lot or not the entire parcel. So the more you can limit your cut, you're clearing the less trees you have to worry about, identifying.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure I understand. So it's not currently required to do that for the definitive stage?
That's right. It's a different threshold, I believe, that's in the subdivision rules and regs. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I think it says just larger species trees.
Okay.
So yeah, we can certainly talk about that when it comes time for the definitive submittal.
Okay. And then he just that was pretty much it. So I don't really have, I don't know if you guys have any questions for me, but I think that's pretty much it. I'm ready to move on to the next steps.
Yeah, I think unless there's any other, questions or comments from anyone, I think we're good to, close the hearing and then vote on the decision. So entertain a motion if someone would like to.
I will move that we close the preliminary subdivision hearing for South Bolton Road, map 2C parcel 23.
Second.
And those in favor, Mike Gore,
Aye.
Eric Nealons,
Aye.
and Mark Sprague.
Aye.
All right.
All right, great. And then we want to have a motion to approve the decision.
I'll move that we approve the decision for the preliminary subdivision decision for South Bolton Road, map 2C parcel 23.
Second.
And those in favor, Mike Gore,
Aye.
Eric Nealons,
Aye.
and Mark Sprague.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jeff, very much for your patience and your attendance. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll jump back to the last item on business, and hopefully we're ready for that now. So this is a discussion and vote on recommendation to the select board related to a limited recreation business district special event at the International, which is the LIV Golf Invitational Series. And as my understanding from our discussion, Valerie, the purpose of this discussion tonight is we'll get some background and then be able to provide a recommendation to the select board, who I believe are meeting tomorrow night. So we kind of need that tonight on this this event related to specific issues within the planning board's purview, such as parking, wastewater, waste removal, traffic, fire protection type of things, etc. So we have someone from either the International or LIV Golf to give us a little background on the call.
So, hi, my name is Kelly Durfee-Cardoza. I'm with Avalon Consulting, and I'm a consultant for both the International and the Par 5 group, who's the applicant here. I know that 2 people were planning to attend, but the expectation was that it probably was going to be a lot later than this. So why don't I go forward? I have everything that we need, and they can join us when they get there. I know they were in another meeting when I left just a little while ago. So the reason that we're here is because the select board has to make the decision, as you said. When the special permit was granted for the International, consistent with the limited recreation business district regulation, there was a provision for a special event, and that special event requires approval from the select board if the event is for more than 500 persons. And they take input from not only the planning board, but the Board of Health, the fire chief, the police chief, the building inspector. So those are the kind of the people that we've been talking to. The plan is that this will be a 3-day event over Labor Day weekend. There are expected to be, and there's a cap that's been agreed with the planning board of 6,500 people per day. That would include players, emergency personnel, staff, volunteers, and attendees. So there's probably closer to about 6,000 members of the public who are coming versus the others. The criteria for approval are off-street parking, wastewater disposal, traffic control, refuse, crowd security, and fire protection. So what I'm going to do is just give you the brief overview of what the project is, and then we'll focus in on those few things. The Oaks Golf Course will be used. It's the newer of the 2 golf courses, as well as the existing infrastructure buildings. They will be constructing a fan village. Valerie, can I either share my screen or could you put that site plan up for me, whichever you're.
Yes, I think you are able to share your screen. The green button should be there for you.
Okay, let me.
Yeah.
Get that done properly so you're looking at the right thing. Well, that's loading. Oh, here it is. No, why can't I see it? You'd think I'd be good at Zoom after doing it for all these months.
Yeah, you'd think we all be good at it.
Well, I can see it on my screen, but when I go to share screen, I don't see it. So let's try it this way.
It can be more complicated if you have 2 screens up. So it should give you the option of which one to focus on.
Okay, I've got it, that one right there. Okay, let me go back to you. Share screen. Ah, there it is. Okay, can you see that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, cool. So this is Ballville Road here, and this is Wilder Road. So the International exists between essentially Ballville and Wilder. It's about 700 acres. The majority of the property is in Bolton. There's a smaller amount, about 100 acres in Lancaster. Parking for the event will be primarily at the Bolton Fairgrounds or on these lots that are shown here. This is on farmland that is owned. The fee ownership is owned by the International or Escalante, the International. And there's a conservation restriction on it that's held by the Bolton Conservation Trust. There's a provision for parking in the conservation restriction that was granted over that land. And then the remainder of the parking will be at Twin Springs, which is located right here off of Wilder Road. That's been closed for some time. The existing infrastructure will be used. So the old clubhouse will become the volunteer headquarters. The existing clubhouse will be used for player support. The conference center and lodge in this area, the lodge will be for media. The conference center will be accommodations. This central portion right here is called the Fan Village. And that includes the primary hospitality sites, first aid sites, family services, probably a hydration center, which is potable water that'll be brought in so that people can fill their water bottles, as well as a series of restrooms. So they will be about 100 portable toilets and probably in the range of 10 handicapped accessible restroom trailers. And those will be installed at least 5 locations on the property. The event will be a shotgun start for golf. So rather than many other professional tournaments, all the players will start playing all at the same time. A round of golf will take about 4 to 4.5 hours. And for the rest of the time that people are there, they'll be welcomed into the fan village. And then in the evenings, there will be music. And that music will be approximately 5 to 9 on Friday and Saturday, and 5 to 10 on Sunday. So the hours that we put in the select board's application, which is exactly what you all received, will be from 10 in the morning until 10 in the afternoon. Parking lots will open at 9:30, but the actual gates, if you will be opened later. So we have more than adequate off-street parking. There's approximately 2 times as many cars as we need parking for right now. And there are a number of people in town who have stepped up and said that they would like to offer, for compensation, of course, the use of their fields for parking rather than having them need to go to the Bolton Fairgrounds. So what we said in the document is that decisions like the final decision on where the parking occurs really will be made by the fire chief. Based on public safety, we know that we have options, and he's kind of determining what he thinks is most appropriate on those options. That work will be done primarily by him, but in concert with the state police and representatives from SEMLEC, who will work on-site parking and also off-site parking. And how the plan will work to get cars there through the routes. So provisions for adequate wastewater disposal. The International has a 22,000 gallon per day, in round numbers, wastewater treatment plant. They also have private wells, since Bolton doesn't have either municipal water supply or municipal waste services. So those facilities will be used just to support the buildings. There'll be no connections to them for any of the temporary structures that are constructed. So the tents that would serve in the fan village, or the outdoor cooking facilities, all of those will be served by a company called United Site Services, which is in Westboro, and they will bring in both potable water and the restrooms that we had talked about before. Traffic control, the police, the state police and SEMLEC will be involved in traffic control measures. We have prepared a plan that was submitted in the application, and we can go through it if you'd like, that talks about which routes will be used, how many variable message boards will be there, what size signs will be applied. And those were prepared by the consulting team for the applicant. Again, those will be, the final decision on those will be for public safety, for the police department, with input from the fire department as needed. Refuse disposal. The refuse disposal will be handled by a national vendor, as will many of the aspects of this project, but they'll be using local staff. And so locally, it will be E.L. Harvey, who will be providing refuse disposal. But one of the highlights of the tour event is that it will focus on sustainability. So there'll be a lot of efforts to reduce the waste rather than just, picking up the trash and taking it off-site. There'll be an eco village inside the fan village, and that will be a place to teach people about recycling opportunities, how to reduce waste, how to reuse products. And it will talk a little bit about the life cycle of products for some education. There also will be a sorting area that will occur outside of the public spaces, And what that will do is that will be the first sorting of the materials that are here so that they can really reduce the overall waste. Provisions for crowd control and security is the next aspect that they need to vote on. So the head of security is ex-Navy, ex-FBI, and provided security at the Masters for more than 15 years. So he has worked with a company called Andy Frayne, who will provide private security for the event. That will be the security that's on the property and takes care of security at parking lots, screening. Everyone who enters the facility will be screened with a magnetometer and then searched with a wand, and their bags will be searched. There's a very large group of items that are not allowed in. It's pretty standard, as if you were going to Gillette for an event. So that will be the private security. Then there's the outer ring, if you will, of local police supported by state police and SEMLEC. And then there is Homeland Security that has been involved in the project as well. The meetings for those teams are ongoing, and it's my understanding that they meet on a regular basis until the day of the event, in case anything changes. And then the final piece of this is adequate fire protection. Chief Legender has been to the International before. He's familiar with the infrastructure that's here. It's one of the places in town with the largest capacity for water for firefighting. There is a lined irrigation pond. You can see my little mouse, it's right here. And there's a pump house right here in front of that pond. Water fills the pond from the irrigation wells at the International. And then should there be a fire, the pumps would be dedicated only to fire use and would feed a hydrant system that has been established up in the areas here near the conference center and lodge, the old clubhouse, the new clubhouse, and the cart barn area. Should there be additional need than the water that's in the pond, there is also the well that will backfill the pond. The other portion of that is standby medical that will be overseen by the chief. And at the end of the day, it's Chief Legender who makes the decision on whether or not the event is safe in terms of walking through to make sure there are adequate aisles in the tent areas, receiving all of the tent certificates for flame retardancy, and making sure that the cooking is done properly. There'll be no cooking inside of tents that are also occupied by the public. The building inspector, Mike Savageau, has reviewed these plans and set forth all the code issues that the applicants, vendors will need to abide by. We've also talked with the Neshoba Associated Board of Health, and both Bill Brookings and Bridget, and I've forgotten her last name and I apologize for that, who takes care of all the food permits, has started to meet with vendors and address these issues. There's one other aspect of the project that that isn't one of the 6 criteria that the town has to, that the select board has to vote on. But the select board needs to find that the event is not a burden on the citizens of Bolton. And one of the ways we think that will be the case is that there's a substantial economic opportunity for businesses in the community to take part in this. In fact, earlier tonight, we met with some interested businesses to talk about what services they have and how they might be involved. Caterers, orchards, the winery, those kind of people who are interested in being part of this. It's until the town issues the special event approval, Live can't, or Par 5 group can't engage any of these vendors, but they've certainly been talking to them and trying to get everyone in place. The other aspect is the amount of money that is expected to be spent in the region. And it's hard for me to say what the region is, but it's the region that's impacted by air traffic and hotels and rental cars and dining out. And that really starts in Bolton, but it certainly extends, probably from Worcester to Logan. And the estimates for economic impact are about $29 million. And that's based on other events of this size and the 2 tour events that have been held, one in London and the other in Portland, Oregon, and that one is being held this week. Finally, there's a charitable contribution aspect to the project. It's $1 million of money that will be spent in Bolton and the region. And again, it's that same idea of it starts in Bolton, but it definitely moves out. And the Live event has selected a number of aspects that they'd like to work on. And those are sustainability, education, growing the game of golf at the youth level, but also all youth sports. And then something that they're calling the greatest need. And so I've been talking to people in town, as have Steve Brennan, who is the general manager of the International, and Mike Goggin, who is he works for Par 5 Group, and he's going to be the tournament director. And we've been talking about what that is. I think there's some thought that the food pantry in Clinton that services Bolton as well would be one of those places. There's talk about some commitment to funding for conservation. But one of the other things that we've been hearing is that people wonder how that $1 million, it sounds like a lot of money. How does that $1 million get spent, and how does it get funneled in town? And I think one of the strategies that Mike has been working on is that trying to develop a board, if you will, of citizens in town to help oversee where that money goes. There's a professional firm that reviews that and determines that, but they don't have the on the ground knowledge that citizens would have. So that's one of the aspects that we were kind of talking to people about as recently as this evening. I know this is not something that you have to vote on to permit. So I didn't give you the same kind of information that I might do if you were a special permit granting authority and I was asking for a permit from you, but I'm happy to share any information that you'd like.
Yeah, thanks very much, Kelly, for the background and for your time, coming in and talking to the planning board here, understanding that, we're not putting on a permit. We appreciate it. I think absolutely. I have a couple questions, and then some other folks on the board might as well. Just a few. One, you mentioned 6,500 people a day cap, which makes sense, given the smallness of the town and things like that. Do you anticipate, over the course of the event, a significant number of people beyond that, being in Bolton for one reason or another, that in terms of not necessarily spectators, but I think we're all aware of some of the publicity around the series and things like that, whether it's one thing or another. Do you anticipate that there would be any a significant amount more people coming to Bolton during the event than the cap specific to those at the golf course.
So, I don't have a crystal ball just like you don't, but I can tell you that we've provided a First Amendment right, free speech area for those people who'd like to speak. And the US Open was in Brookline last week. And so the US Open did the same thing. They were not sponsored by the LIV event, but they were impacted because to some degree, there's the relationship between the PGA Tour and this event. This is an alternative event. It is a shotgun, which is something that the PGA has never done. There are some aspects of it from a golf perspective that are seen to be beneficial. So, and many of the people who played golf at the Open have decided to come and play in this tournament. So they provided that free speech area. And I'm told that there were never more than 4 or 5 people there. And generally they didn't stay very long and they were handing out pamphlets. So I think that there was a plan to make sure that there was adequate space for that to occur, and it didn't occur. That doesn't mean it won't occur here, but that's one of the things from a public safety perspective that Chief Nelson has discussed. And I think that will also go all the way through SEMLEC and up higher. They're making provisions for that. I don't believe that it will be extensive based on what we saw at the US Open, but I don't honestly know.
Sure. Yeah, I know it's a difficult kind of question to answer, but it's kind of like that.
Along those lines, we don't want people parking on Ballville Road and stuff and standing in front. Are you, along with like a free speech area, do you have like a way to, you don't want them to be just parking on the side of the road too? Like, I don't know.
So
Have you thought about that?
Chief Nelson has been working with Mike Goggin from the Par 5 group, and it appears at this point that the majority of the traffic will be sent down 117 to the Bolton Fairgrounds. From there, people will park their cars, they will be screened, and then they'll board shuttle buses. Those shuttle buses will come back and enter onto Ballville Road. It's likely that Ballville Road will be closed to general traffic. Neighbors of the International and residents on Ballville Road will be given a hang tag. All of those hang tags will have chips in them so that from a security perspective, they can be screened at each time. If you have kind of like we did in our house for many years, our 2 cars and then whatever the kids were driving, if you need extra ones, we'll make those extra ones available to those people. So the attempt will be to limit the impact to the people who live in Ballville Road, but it's quite likely that Ballville Road will be closed. There will, however, not be any parking on any public street in town, whether it be by someone who is parked or whether someone who wants to do, exercise their First Right amendments. I don't know where that location will be. There's been talk that at least one area would be at the fairgrounds. But again, that's one of those things that Chief Nelson and that team will decide.
And the fairgrounds are located in Lancaster. Is Lancaster on board with this?
Yes. So there's a meeting tomorrow that is Lancaster Police, Bolton Police, State Police, and I believe some SEMLEC representatives, so that they are all on the same page. There will be variable message boards that will tell people to go. They'll be on 495. They'll be on 117. And in the application I sent, there's a list of where we think those will be. There'll be large 4 feet by 4 feet signs that will be directing traffic. And then there will be details. Right now we're talking about police details, but the same will apply for fire details. There'll be a number of details at certain posts throughout the area. All of those details will be paid for by the applicant. None of them will fall to the town. And I'm told that the town gets 10% of all those details. So that's another way that there'll be at least some money that goes into the town coffers.
Thanks, Peter.
Okay.
Just-
Um,
Oh, sorry, just one additional question, Mark, that I had.
Yeah.
And then, and, obviously the event over the Labor Day weekend, kind of expect some, disruption around the town, right? Which can kind of be planned for and obviously probably tolerated to some extent, by residents. But in terms of the lead up to the event, in the time prior, the month prior, or any follow on from the event, do you anticipate, impacts to traffic, whether it be road closures or, a excessive increase in traffic? I mean, Bolton's a pretty small town. 117 is often a nightmare though, right? Especially during commute times. And I'm pretty sure that last week of August is actually the start of school, in Massachusetts. So, in the lead up to the event in particular, or the follow-on days, do you kind of anticipate, impact to the town, particularly in terms of, traffic or road closures or other things that, might extend it beyond just the few days of the actual event?
Sure. So assuming that permits are granted, the start of the construction will be around the middle of July. The golf course is open to members, just as it always is. So there'll be carpenters and electricians and others building that week. From July 15th up until the event. We don't see that that's any more substantial than a typical event at the International. At about the same time, one of the golf courses, the Pines, will be closing because they're getting ready for a renovation. That has nothing to do with this live event, but what it will mean is that there won't be people playing on two 18-hole golf courses. They'll likely be playing on one 18 and one 9, which is, I think, what will be open at that point in time. So we think there'll be a reduction in traffic from what might normally occur anyway. The week of August 24th, the golf course will be turned over from the International ownership to the Par 5 group, who actually will rent it. And at that point, they'll be in the mode of constructing, bringing water in, getting ready for people to come in for caterers and those kinds of things. So there will be some additional activity, but there'll be nobody playing golf during that time period. Then on the Wednesday of the event, there'll be some practice rounds. Those are not open to the public. So there should be very limited. There'll be 48 golfers who play and 48 caddies. So, we're looking at 96 people playing golf, but there'll be no members here because the golf course will be closed to members. The restaurant will not be open. There'll be no use of the hotel other than for the people who are working here. So we don't believe that there'll be any additional traffic except for those 3 days. And as you said, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 6,500 people is, I'm told, not terribly different from what the Bolton Fair has been in recent years. I'm not talking pandemic, but in recent years before that. So it will be fairly similar. One of the differences is that based on all the traffic discussions we've had, there will not be a need to close 117, which I know, or I'm told, sometimes happens for the fair. So we don't think that in the buildup that you'll see too much traffic. You will see traffic on those 3 days, but we have credentialed parking on Ballville Road. We have shuttle buses to get people there. So we're hoping that that makes it a little more tolerable. And then there'll be about a month afterwards when things will slowly come down. The TV towers, et cetera, will probably come down on the Monday of Labor Day and then continue to be done that week. But we expect there'll be some presence on property for another 30 days, but it will be much less. And we don't believe there'll be any traffic, negative traffic impacts with that. During that time period, there'll be no events at the International. The days when there were large weddings and big conferences, that's not really the business model for these current owners.
With the exception of the fact that Callan Farm did not allow any type of parking on their land. And with the Bolton Fair last year, that everybody had to be shuttled from other areas. Is there any concern about that?
The traffic plan that has been worked out. So the company that will actually do the management of the traffic and the parking is the same company that did the US Open. They will have a significant number of people here, many message boards, and a number of details and posts at each of the intersections. At this point, my understanding is Chief Nelson has requested a post at every intersection from 495 up to the International. So I think that the goal is to be able to manage.
What I'm saying is you can't use the Bolton Fair from last year because it was completely different than it has been for the last, like, I don't know, 5 or.
Well, I think Jim, you know, the proposal is that the parking is actually on the Bolton Fairgrounds, right? As opposed to across the street, you know, at Callan Farms, where the fairgrounds are actually needed for the fair, right? And you can't park cars in the fairgrounds because
we're after the fair.
Right. So yeah, understood. So I think, Jim, you know, your concern is, you know, the Bolton Fair, they have the fairgrounds open for all the fair stuff, and then, you know, they park, or in the past use some of the space across the street. But from what I read in the proposal is the actual fairgrounds, because Kelly, as you say, this is after the fair, the fairgrounds are actually where the cars are going to be parked.
My mistake, Pete. Sorry. Yeah, okay, I get it now. Thank you.
So Kelly, did I hear you say that the Bolton Fairgrounds are where the majority of parking is going to be?
So in our application, we put 2 locations. There are fields off of Old Bay Road, and there was some discussion. And it was my understanding when we prepared the application that we would be splitting parking between that location and the Bolton Fairgrounds. And I know Chief Nelson has said that he hasn't made his final decision, but he will, and it will be based on what's best for traffic. But as of today, and I feel like this is a little fluid because they're having a pretty large meeting tomorrow with a number of people. It's my understanding he preferred to have the general public at the fairgrounds. We'll be able to put, so we have more than twice as many parking spaces than we need in this current plan. And let me just go through a bit of how many. So there's a table in here that talks about the potential for 2,200 cars at the fairgrounds, 3,100 at Old Bay Road Fields. And those would be, and then another 300 cars on the farm field lot across the street from the International. And cars from the fairgrounds and this Old Bay field would be shuttled to what is a shuttle depot at Sawyer Road and Ballville Road. And then they'll go through just a small walking area, and they'll cross Ballville Road across the first golf hole and enter the facility there. So we have enough parking for over 1,200 people per day at those two locations, the fairgrounds and the Old Bay Fields. And whatever the chief wants in terms of what he thinks is best, we're willing to do.
You know what the route to get to the International would be from the fairgrounds? So would you go on to 110 and come up to Ballville that way, or drive further up 117?
There's a plan. Hold on, let me pull that up for you. Is Mike Goggin on?
Yeah, I'm here, Kelly.
So Mike, do you want to help with that since you're the person that's been doing that coordination?
Yeah, of course. I appreciate you taking the charge. I didn't get a chance to introduce to. I'm the tournament director, Mike Goggin. Work for Par 5 Group. Will be executing the tournament on behalf of Live Golf. But I live in Burlington. Spent about 15 years doing this all over the world. Excited to be a part of a local one, certainly. But yeah, no, I've been talking with Chief Nelson and getting, fire, essentially everybody's input on, impact from previous experience from the fair and routes and, trying to create the least impact on the neighborhood. Realize obviously the closer we get to the property, the smaller the roads get. So we're talking about jumping in from the Orchard Market and traveling that route, and whether a singular direction versus the same route, cross traffic, and comparing impact to the neighborhoods versus ability to turn the service quickly. It's still kind of fluid, but the goal is obviously to work in and to essentially take the chief's interests in terms of how we're going to manage this. But I guess the only thing I'll really stress is that beyond what the fair does and has done, you will see a much more significant signage plan, detail posts, staff, shuttles, all of that will be probably more significant than what has happened at the fair. Obviously, it's a lot different. We're going to be taking people to the fair and then getting them out of there. We're 100% going to be using the fair essentially for our public, ingress. So the plan will be to get, the most accessible route to the fair being 117 and getting them into the property in a way that queues and loads and stages and parks in an orderly way, considering traffic, considering crosswalks and loading on the right side of buses and everything, all that gets taken into account. Routing folks to the property so that they can get to the property quickly. We'll do the checking, the credentials, the prohibited items, the ticketing, all of that stuff on the parking side of things. And then by the time they get to the property, they'll be in. But all of that, will be, I have an idea, certainly have experience in this and will, try to come up with plans, but make, the local knowledge and the local experience and honestly the leadership of the locals here to make those changes as needed. And that could be even as late as during the week of, if we turn this thing on and the planning doesn't work, we have the depth and the expertise to be able to pivot. So if something needs to change, it will change.
Hey, Mike, for reference, in the proposal, page 24 is where the proposed routes are, just for reference. So are the the tickets for the event, are they purchased ahead of time? Or are they on site or, what's, are you expecting just the number of people that are ticketed to show up? Or is there the possibility for more people hoping to grab a last minute ticket,
It's whether the tickets are purchased in advance or whether the tickets are sold on site. We're going to be capped at about 6,000 spectators. I think, we'll probably have between players and caddies and vendors and staff and everything else and volunteers, you'll probably have, you'll certainly have less than 6,000 available opportunities to be at this event. And so whether we sell out in advance, which I think is absolutely doable, given the time that we have to and given who's coming on board as each of these events take place, I don't think that 6,500 or 6,000 spectators is certainly unreasonable to sell in advance. If we sell tickets, and we're not at 6,000, then yes, I think that there will be folks that come to get tickets. But I would guess that we will be likely at capacity prior to the event.
Okay, so you're not expecting a significant additional amount of traffic of people hoping to pick up a ticket at the last minute then?
Correct. No, I mean, I think, certainly in years past, these events, it's been a lot easier to do a, kind of ticket walk-up window will call expectation for spectators and guests. And I think that the secondary market is really where a lot of that has shifted. And so, we don't see as much of folks trying to get to the property prior to purchasing anything anymore.
Okay. And just looking at the variable message board locations, since 117 is a cut through to get, for people who don't want to use Route 2, I think you want 495 southbound at Route 2 to tell people at 117 traffic is going to be heavy, to encourage them to take, and similarly on 195, same sort of thing.
Yeah,
and the fair usually has boards there to try to, preemptively give people a warning that they might want to go a different direction, different way.
Absolutely. No, for sure. I think that, what we've got started is a very rough, plan for, and we'll incorporate, Lancaster probably, the Bolton Fairgrounds has been organized a little bit later than some of that planning. So certainly we're going to take their planning and kind of incorporate it into what we have and what we're planning to do. Obviously it's a little bit different, but agreed. I think, well in advance messaging that's going to say that there's going to be a severe impact, as far as those 3 days are concerned, to trying to use 117 as a bypass, that's definitely something we'll do.
Are these like school buses or smaller shuttle buses or?
They're most likely going to be, just given my past experience with country club services, and seeing, having been at the Open and worked with the USGA and working with CCS, and it'll more than likely be coach buses, anywhere from 32 to 45 foot, standard buses with HVAC and, TVs inside. It'll be an upgraded. It won't be a school bus. I know that obviously the school system is already in swing. Whether they're available on Saturday and Sunday, I think, we'll try to leave that alone and rely specifically on probably Academy to be providing coaches from the fairgrounds. I think you may see a little bit smaller size from Twin Springs, but yeah, they'll be like shuttle coaches. I guess too, it's worth mentioning too. I mean, the whole point of getting the fairgrounds and locations like the Springs is to try and limit the passenger vehicle traffic as much as possible, and to condense a dozen cars or 20 cars into a single bus, and so that will drastically decompress the amount of traffic that will be taking place on those narrow roads. And then we'll limit traffic to those credentialed vehicles that have access to the clubhouse, the shuttles, and the residents that need access to those roads to get home.
Right, any other questions from the planning board to Kelly or Mike?
No, I think, the goal here really is to just make sure that everybody understands, that we're trying to be as open and get as much input from anyone as possible to make sure that everyone feels like we're listening, we're trying to be good partners here, we're trying to be neighbors, and we want this thing to stick around, and we want to do it the right way the first time. We realize that that's going to be difficult given the time frame, given the fact that this is the first time that this has happened, given the fact that this series, this league is a little bit different. The ingress and egress is going to be a little bit different, but that's part of what I think is going to be helpful. We're not going to be driving early in the morning or during the 5 o'clock commute where our golf is taking place between 1 and 5:30. Our gates are 10. We'll come in after traffic. We're only 3 days. The US Open is 7. Most tour events are 4 to 7. So our impact will be just for those 3 days, which I think is helpful. And also the timing, we're going to be open for 12 hours, but we're going to try to do everything that we can to push for that traffic to happen in hours that are not as impactful for business commute.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mike, and we certainly appreciate your willingness to come and talk and your transparency and just to work with as I said, we're a small town. This is not something that comes about here every day, and certainly if this event is permitted and goes forward, we'd appreciate and there's potential future plans, we'd appreciate the opportunity to provide some post-event feedback, from all the members of the town.
Of course.
To folks. Valerie, is there anything you would like to, questions you have or concerns you have? And then I know there's a few other people in the call if others want to, open up for any questions after that. But Valerie, anything from you?
Yeah, so I just wanted to reiterate to the board that the select board is meeting tomorrow night to provide or to discuss approval of the special event. The select board, so the way that the zoning bylaw lays this out, as Kelly mentioned earlier, the select board will be looking for comment on those 6 items: the off-street parking, waste disposal, wastewater disposal, traffic control, crowd control, and fire protection. So I've been taking a few notes based on your questions and comments so far. Though I wonder if there's anything else that has not been said that specifically should be kind of reiterated to the select board. It seems like if I can attempt to summarize the conversation, it seems like from what I was hearing, the main concern or area that is not that the board might want more consideration of would be the advanced warning signs, so that folks know what's coming. Were there any other specific comments that you would like me to relay to the select board?
For me personally, I would be most concerned about the traffic impacts.
Okay.
As both as a member of the planning board and as a resident, right? I think, some of the other things are, laid out, laid out fairly well. And, obviously without having an event like this to kind of, the Bolton Fair, sure, this is a little bit different and the timing's a little bit different, especially the lead up stuff. So yeah, my biggest concern is traffic. I know that it seems like there's a good kind of plan and proposal in place. And, I appreciate, Mike, your comment, kind of the willingness to pivot and adjust as necessary if 17 becomes a parking lot at some point. But yeah, that's kind of my biggest, comment or concern about it, knowing how 117 can go from, even just on a normal day, from fine to, backed up from past 495 all the way, out towards 110 in a very quick amount of time. So that's my only, just see how it works out, I guess. Just want to give an opportunity for anyone else on the call here. I see a few others. If anyone's interested in, has a question or a comment, please, give your name and your address. And, once again, we're focused on the specific items, within the purview of the planning board and our recommendation to select board, but, would open the floor to any questions briefly. Yeah, Dick, I think I see your name, Dick Heaton, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dick Heaton, 178 Ballville Road. I'm in a butter. And quite frankly, I've been a strong supporter of the International over the years and would really like to find a way that we can make this a successful program, because I know how important it is to the International, both long term and short term. But I got to tell you, this is coming at us like a freight train. And I appreciate the information the applicant has passed on this evening. It has been very enlightening. And my wife and I are wrestling with trying to deal with all the issues associated with it. I'm pleased to see that you're focusing on traffic, because that is the biggest issue. I understand that this is similar to the Bolton Fair, but there are a couple real big differences. The Bolton Fair was held in the center of town, and after many years of a successful fair, both the fair and the town decided the town wasn't big enough to support it. So it moved to Lancaster. And that was probably the best decision. The other big difference between the Bolton Fair and what's proposed here is this event starts in the morning, ends in the evening. So the traffic is going to be compressed down to a couple hours, whereas the Bolton Fair was spread over a long period of time, much longer period of time. So, we had scenarios where 117 was backed up, 495 was backed up a mile or two in each direction with people trying to get onto 117. I would hope that you're looking at using the exits in Harvard and the exits in Hudson as a way to get into and out of Bolton, as a way to alleviate some of the traffic. But my biggest concern is that the traffic plan is reviewed by the appropriate parties in town. I'm glad the police and the fire are looking at it. I think the planning board should also look at the traffic plan to make sure it's in the best interest of the community. The second point that I would make is that I don't understand what the costs are to the town. I understand that there is incremental revenue, but I would like to see a provision, a recommendation made that any incremental costs that the town incurs will be paid for by the international. Be it police, fire, public safety, anything. When we did the Bolton Fair, we had tremendous expenses that we were never able to recover, both before and after the event. And I think we need an understanding that any of the costs associated with the fair are picked up by the international and not incurred by the Bolton citizens. I think my only other recommendation is you've all referred to information that you have that I haven't seen. It's probably appropriate that I haven't seen it at this point in time, but as neighbors, we really would like some more information and would like to be involved in some of the decisions that are going to affect our lives over several weeks. So whether you set up a subcommittee or whether you hold a meeting or whatever you do, I think it would help us all if we were included in some of these discussions, maybe not the decisions, but to have input so that they could be considered. So, in general, I can't speak for my neighbors. I know some of them are going to be very upset about this. I'm not even sure within my own family we're all 100% on tune, but we're trying to accommodate what the international needs to do because we believe it's in the best interest of Bolton. And would like your help to make that happen. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dick, very much for your comments. A couple thoughts from me. First of all, the first I heard about this was today. I'll be honest. A little bit. I don't do social media. I did search online and see a few news articles. This was on the agenda. Valerie and I talked earlier today. This is the first I've heard about it, and I'm very glad to hear from Kelly and Mike that they have been in contact with various members of the town. We're obviously a volunteer board, right? But the town, police chief, fire chief, town administrator, etc. About this. When I saw it and realized what it was, I actually thought it was being proposed for next year. So the date took me by a little bit of surprise. And, I realized things have, for a lot of reasons, have needed to move quickly. So I definitely echo your comments, Dick, that the town, there could be a lot of people in the town that don't know about this yet. Could be an interesting few months here in Bolton. Related to your comment about what we've received, Valerie, excuse me, is the application provided that we saw, is that a public document that's available to residents?
Yes, it is public. I have not placed it online. I don't know that it's possible that the Office of the Select Board has put it online. I can.
Not online, Valerie. It's not online.
Not online. Okay. I can certainly make that comment to staff tomorrow. Though I understand the Select Board's meeting is tomorrow night, so it still does not provide a lot of time. And it is a detailed document. So.
Yeah, but certainly if that's something we can make available, we absolutely can do that, understanding the short timeframes. And yeah, the traffic concerns are certainly something I echo as well. Typically in for kind of small projects in town, we go through detailed traffic studies. So I think this could be a unique challenge, and hopefully, hopefully organizers are kind of willing to continue to work with the appropriate folks, in town, and obviously during the event, make adjustments as necessary and as needed. I also, echo your comments, Dick. I mean, if this is a successful event, I mean, the International has been, I've certainly been aware of it since I moved to Bolton. I have been to the public restaurant there. I don't know if it's still public, but it was a couple of years ago. I was surprised when golf club suddenly kind of closed a couple of years ago, and then was surprised to hear that it was purchased and reopened, and now this. So it's definitely kind of a unique thing to a small town like us to have, such a great golf course, and it would be great to have, something like this, in the future, assuming it, works out well and can be adjusted well. So personally, I'm definitely supportive of this, and hope it does become something that might go forward in the future, whether with this particular golf league or something else. But obviously, you're gonna have to learn as things go. Any other members of around the meeting that would like to? So sorry, Mike, you wanted to?
No, I just wanted to say that I certainly appreciate Mr. Heaton's comments. I absolutely know exactly where he's coming from. I wish that for all of us that we had more time. Typically, this is not all happening as quickly as it is, and visibility and awareness is one of our biggest challenges. I think that due to the lack of time, I think that we're having a hard time kind of trying to get opportunities to make everyone aware and to make sure that everyone gets the information. I mean, it's not insignificant what it takes to kind of put these things together, and some of it is obviously fluid and changing. But I absolutely think that beyond the town's government and the town's assistance in terms of using the information and the experience of how to do this locally, I fully realize that the impact to specifically folks on Ballville and our local residents and our abutters is going to be significant. That's definitely not lost on us. I want to make sure, we're trying to mail out to abutters. I believe, Kelly, I think that went out last week, but want to try and get information available. My information or connecting with me at any time to kind of walk through any questions that you have is absolutely doable. I want to make sure that you are comfortable in understanding what we have planned, and that you feel like we're taking what you're saying into consideration. I absolutely am. I think that what we're putting together is based on doing absolutely everything that we can to limit the impact to you specifically. I realize that, folks coming through it, and trying to cut through 117 or passing through town are going to be impacted, but really, getting home is going to be a problem those 3 days. And, we will have much more infrastructure than the fair has ever had. I think that it's, in terms of scale, this year, the numbers are going to be pretty similar to the fair, but I think that in terms of scope, in terms of what we are going to bring and the logistics that are involved to mitigate those challenges, it will be much more substantial than the fair. I've talked with Rose. I know she lives down the street from you, and she's fantastic and is working with very limited resources. We are going to be at a different scale, and will be it will be a much different experience. And I think that it's very much a challenge. And I, in my previous experience of exactly this and kind of coming to new regions without previous event scopes like this, it's really hard to kind of get a grasp of what this is going to look like and the impact it's going to have. And I realize that once we're through it, the first time, we'll be able to see and understand it, but we'll also very much both actively during that week and post be reacting to what's working and what's not. I mean, this is a first event, like I said, in this area. And so when we turn the water on and we find some leaks, we will actively pursue those corrections during that time. And of course, there'll be significant debriefing and communication and feedback and talks, and obviously, thankfully, much more time between this and the next to be able to correct anything that didn't work the way that we wanted it to, anything that caused a negative impact that we weren't aware of or weren't trying to get ahead of. But I think that it's hard to put faith in somebody you don't know. But I can tell you that me being a local is it's important for me for this thing to have an impact locally and for this thing to stick around locally. It doesn't happen very often. I'm usually having to move or live somewhere outside of where I'm from to do this. So it's important for me that this thing stays, selfishly, but it also is very important to me that that everyone understand that we are here as neighbors and want to make sure that it feels like we are a part of this and are not trying to force our way into it. We want the cooperation of the neighborhood. We want the understanding we are listening. I am listening. So come by, let me know. We can talk through any and all details you want. I'm absolutely happy to do that. The other piece of what you spoke about that I wanted to make sure that you're clear on too, and everyone else is clear on, is that our coming to town is not, other than probably the time resources required from folks who would otherwise be trying to get away for the weekend. Financially, there should be no impact on the negative to the town. Our details, our fire, our public safety, all of that are detail and post positions that will be covered by the event. The event coming to town is not the town of Bolton's financial responsibility.
Jean Heaton, Dick's wife. I just would like to make a comment and just ask you to certainly be mindful of it. This is an event that is politically concerning for us, for the United States, and for other people. And I would hope and ask you to be very mindful of the fact that there could be some issues that arise from this event in Bolton, which is a wonderful place to live. We've lived here for 50 years. And we just want to make sure that you are mindful that there are other people who don't feel the same way we do about the United States and about what's happening right now. And I'm not sure, and I didn't hear you mention anything about the potential for safety or what might happen if other people choose to not support this. And I pray it doesn't happen, but I honestly think there wasn't a discussion at all about what about the safety of people if there's some sort of an incident here. I don't think you need to answer that tonight, but it definitely has to be discussed. And I definitely think we need to be aware of it.
Yeah, I won't, get into the full. Yeah, go ahead. Absolutely.
Just to be clear, what Jean is talking about is being a Saudi-sponsored golf tournament. This has been characterized in the golf media as an event that is blood money for the human rights problems with Saudi Arabia. And it's just very, very possible that that's going to come out in the event. And it is really important that you acknowledge it and are prepared for it.
I think we did talk about it a little bit in the fact, just, they said they would have like a free speech area. And I think I asked about how would you deal with those cars and just drive ups and stuff like that? And I think they mentioned that they were talking about closing the road, Belleville Road, to everybody except residents, which might be helpful for your neighborhood. But besides that, I don't think we talk too much more.
I think, Eric, it's important to start thinking about a bombing, a mass shooting, all of these awful things that we have been able to avoid being in Bolton. But it is not just set off an area where people who want to activate for. It's being prepared for a very serious event that is something that we've never dealt with before, and even not even talked about it. It's important to talk about it, important to be prepared for it. And I'm not sure our police and fire and public safety have gone through this and have an understanding of what could happen.
So
This is one of the biggest things that's happened in Bolton for years. So it's important for us to try and consider all the options. None of us want anything dangerous or awful to happen, but in today's world, it's totally different than it was when the Bolton Fair, when we moved into Bolton in 1967, and I judged a cow judging, it's totally different. And watching what's happening in Washington and what's happening in other places in the world, I think we need to be prepared, and we need to at least think about it and talk about what we could do to protect Bolton and the people who come to share the wonderful thing that this is going to be a fantastic golf tournament. We need to be prepared.
Yeah, thank you both very much for your comments. Personally, I've very aware of as someone who follows golf, very aware of the news and the things around this new league, the positives and the potential negatives, and I certainly share some of your concerns. My question earlier was maybe a little more general, but definitely along the same lines. And we obviously are a small town, and as you said, this is not something that comes to Bolton every day, and I agree that it is something that we need to really make sure the organizers of the event have a good plan and contingency type of plans in place. I think Mark, I'm sorry I pronounced that wrong. You kind of raised your hand as during that discussion. If you'd like to identify yourself and have a comment on this issue, I'd welcome that.
So Mark Ayotte from 985 Main Street in Bolton, and I get double duty because I also own 289 Seven Bridge Road, which is directly across the street from the fairgrounds. So I got two properties right on 117, which I'll be honest, this traffic, and I heard from the organizers tonight because I'm a business and I went to a meeting and talked to them and such. This traffic, I have little to zero concern, less concern than the Bolton Fair and what they're doing, mainly because in talking with Mike and Kelly, Steve, they are going to throw so many resources that we have never seen in the way of details to control traffic, help with the flow, make sure that it moves through the light cycles, which never happens with the Bolton Fair, mainly because they don't have the resources that these guys have. So I do think we should be mindful of that and give them the leeway on this, and give them the benefit of doubt here. They're an extremely professional group of people here that we're talking about, and know what they're doing. And I know this from my own personal experience because I work for the Boston Red Sox. I've been through 3 World Series, numerous championship series and such. I see how professional sporting events are run. I'm out at the Worcester Stadium now too. So I'm daily in this sports arena and what's going on, and it'll allow me to talk to the security around these events and how these professional people like myself and everybody else that are in these stadiums, and every word that they're thinking is 100% around security. We're going to have the state police involved here. This is not just going to fall on our local police, everybody. The state police will be involved, and I'd be very, very surprised if the Department of Homeland Security doesn't in some way get pulled in, because they're pulled into just our little stadium in Worcester. They're definitely pulled in to Fenway. And we have plenty of governmental resources that I think that Mike and Kelly and Steve are going to be tapping into. So, you know, I do hear the concern of mass shooting and bombings and things. It's always a concern in all of these events and everything that happens. But as somebody who goes to the World Series and I'm standing there and they have snipers standing on the roof waiting to do things and such, and to respond really quickly, I think that these people will have exactly the same resources as necessary as the threat assessment will bring forth. And they have plenty of time, if we give them the time now to approve them and get them approved and give them the ground to run on tomorrow night. And everybody, please support this. It's going to give them the time to do it. If we hold them up and we rush it, it just makes it worse for everybody to get that security in place and to do everything. So I really think we have to just all try to get behind it. I think we need to give these people the benefit of the doubt and give them a chance, because I do not want to see the International end up at, I don't know how many homes, which it almost was 2 years ago, everybody. So they need these events to help support the club, and to help benefit this club. So, you know, that's just my 2 cents. And I just hope that everybody can help get behind it, like, you know, the rest of us are all trying to do, and trying to just push it, you know, help them forward and be a resource to them.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mark, for your comments. Appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, when I gave you the information on security, Mike wasn't on. He may be able to give you some higher level if that's something that you're interested in hearing.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's, you know, I know you mentioned kind of the, some of the background of, you know, who you brought in for security. But yeah, Mike, if you have anything to add, that would be great.
Yeah, of course. I certainly understand the concern. I realize that you know, a high profile event is going to gain more attention, and you know, I want to make sure that everyone understands that we are well aware of that and that we are preparing and planning for that. The security from the LIV component side is led by former FBI, former Navy, and Masters golf tournament head of security for the last 12 years. Jim Costigan will oversee what we're putting together here locally, but it's also involving coordination with private security all the way up to federal. So there's a hierarchy of what we're developing. We are entering this facility is going to be much like entering Fenway or Gillette. You will have mag walkthroughs and wanding and credentialed and prohibited items checking. You will have limited access to the golf course with police checkpoints. Everything outside of the property will be handled by local, regional, state, and federal. Shipping coming in, I mean, everything will has a degree of consideration in terms of threat assessment and secure and safe access for spectators and fans and vendors and players. You know, this event, you know, the what we're putting together is you know, much like and using the same folks and using the same systems and using the same kind of ideas behind what was in place at the US Open. Obviously, we're going to be at a little bit smaller scale, but it is the same type of planning and product, using the same companies, the same type of ideas, the same information, you know, with local knowledge and all the way up to the top, depending on participation from you know, dignitaries or state officials or anyone that's going to be here. I think from you folks, you know, walking across the street to people flying in internationally to plan the event, that whole entire scope is absolutely a massive part of what we have in plan.
Mike, I'm speaking because I live directly across from the putting green. And there are 7 houses directly across from the entrance down the road. We definitely want to be supportive and helpful and make this successful for Bolton. How are you going to keep us in the loop? So far, nobody's talked to us at all. We haven't had one single conversation about what was going on. Tonight is helpful and we're grateful for that. We have always been involved in government here in town. Both of us have been involved in town government. I was a teacher in town, but I'm feeling kind of left out here. Who's going to be talking to me? Who's going to help me to be supportive of you?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, important. Unfortunately, a lot of you know, even the folks in this meeting are getting a lot of information for the first time. It's all coming together much quicker than we would all like. It's not because information is being withheld. It's just it's all happening very quickly. So there will be a lot of information available. It will be available very soon. And like I said, you know, I'm right across the street. So if and when you'd like to connect, happy to do so. But again, it's not that we are trying to withhold any information. It's just that it's being developed. Again, you know, we're going to have a very significant meeting tomorrow morning with local police, fire, state, regional, to discuss the planning. And there's likely to be changes there again. So it's all happening very quickly. And I wish that there was you know, better and further notice than what we're getting, but we are providing it out as quickly as we can.
Okay, we'll look forward to that.
Well, who's the contact, Mike? Is it you?
Yes.
When will you send something out to us?
I believe we sent a mail out last week to abutters in all 3 towns.
Nobody sent it to us.
Okay, yeah, we'll check on that. I believe
They were sent by certified mail.
Oh, come on, that was a 1-page summary of, no, you didn't send this to the application. We want the application. All
We
the
did not send the
details.
application. We did send a notice from the select board.
Yes, you did, but it was very brief and it wasn't at all helpful.
Just to you know, thinking about what the planning board can do at this point, I think the point is certainly taken that you know, in the coming days and week here, you know, we should it of course would be great to have more outreach, certainly to direct abutters, but just for looking at the planning board's agenda and what this board can do in terms of review of this special event, I think I would just encourage that conversation to happen in a different venue. So if there's, you know, if looking at the time here as well, if there's any further comment that members of the planning board may have for the applicant and for the select board to consider tomorrow night, that would be great to have. Otherwise, I don't know, you know, what else is really within this board's purview at this point.
I think one thing is you could send out the application tonight that you mentioned you had a copy of. Either put it on the website or send it out tonight.
Yeah, we'll definitely make sure that, if that's something we can make available to the public, which sounds like we are, we'll put that on the website. Absolutely.
I think it's really important for you to know that the people on Ballville Road want to be supportive, but they're feeling as though they've been totally left out of this process. This directly involves us, our children, our lives, and we want to be supportive. All of us want to be part of the process, but we are feeling like we were totally left out of the process. And we're reaching out to you tonight to say, everything you can give us, anything you can give us will help us to be able to be supportive and will be able to help us to support the process you're trying to succeed at. But nothing that we've received has been enough to help us understand what's going on.
Understood. Yes. So I will definitely be in touch with other staff at Town Hall and specifically staff of the select board to relay that message. And I think that the applicant also hears that further outreach is needed as well. So thank you. Are there?
There's only about 10 of us on this whole street that abuts the golf course, and we've supported them. We supported them when they to make sure that it stayed as a whole entity. And this is really painful for us. We want to make sure that our neighbor is carefully taken care of and nurtured, and whatever happens in the future, we can look at that and say, we preserve that wonderful piece of land.
Yeah, I mean, we really appreciate it, appreciate the comments. As I kind of said, I saw this for the first time today myself. So I echo that a little bit, and I understand the kind of rush, and we will do our absolute, the town, will certainly do our best to relay the information, we have as quickly as it comes to us. And, I think certainly the applicants understand that the pace of this and how things come together, affect the impacted residents in that, it does seem like it's coming up all of a sudden, so I understand your comments and appreciate them. Valerie, just one quick question from me. In terms of the planning board, beyond the discussion tonight, is there anything, going forward that is anticipated to be needed from us, prior to the event at future meetings? Or is this kind of, we present a recommendation to the select board, and then, it's a little bit out of our purview until perhaps after the event when we can provide some feedback?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So this is really the only moment that the board is able to comment. I think I did take a note, though, that there was the suggestion that it may be useful, and I'll pass this on to the select board as well, that it may be useful, after the event, to have a discussion with the select board. So not in front of the planning board, but with another board, or maybe a staff level discussion of how it goes. And preparation for, anticipation of potential for future events as well. But yes, so this would be this is kind of the extent of what is needed from the planning board. Yeah.
Great, thanks. And, we certainly encourage anyone to attend the select board meeting tomorrow night and, present their comments to that board as well. So if there's nothing else, I think, we've kind of captured, our comments and concerns. Valerie, if you're able to sort of provide a summary to the select board, we'd really appreciate that. And if there's nothing else, I'll entertain, a motion to kind of provide the recommendation captured tonight to the select board in advance of their discussion tomorrow night.
Sure, I'll move that we, pass our comments and recommendations onto the selectmen for their consideration tomorrow.
Second.
And those in favor, Mark Sprague,
Yes,
Eric Neeland,
Aye.
Mike Gore,
Aye.
Jim Barr, and Pete Driscoll.
Aye.
All right.
So thank you, very much, Kelly and Mike, for your presentation and your transparency. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Heaton, for your concerned comments. We appreciate those as well, and everything else from the board. I hope the event is successful, and we look forward to talking to you again potentially in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
and move we adjourn.
Second.
And those in favor, Mark Sprague,
Yes.
Eric Neeland,
Aye.
Mike Gore,
Aye.
Jim Barr, and Pete Driscoll.
Aye.
All right.
Night, everyone.
Night.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Valerie.